This podcast is about the implications of the general election of Britain that took place in the second week of December 2019. There are 5 key implications or consequences for that election. Of course, this is the election that the Conservatives under Boris Johnson have won massively. And the first implication is that now Brexit will take place. It will take place very shortly, most likely in January 2020. Of course, that will open up major discussions and negotiations on the nature of the relationship between Britain and the European Union after that. But now the uncertainty about Brexit that has existed in the past 3.5 years is out of the picture. And with it, there is now a very solid legislative parliament behind an empowered government, conservative government in Britain. That situation is a first in Britain since mid-2016. The second implication concerns not the relationship between Britain and the European Union, but rather the relationship between Britain and the United States. There are now very clear indications that there will be quite a favorable trade agreement, favorable to Britain, trade agreement between Britain and the United States. And the important part here is not that the Trump administration in Washington wants to do this favorable trade to Britain for the special relationship between Britain and the United States, but primarily also to send a very clear message that is effectively anti the European Union. What concerns us here, the second consequences for us here, is that this highly likely trade agreement between Britain and the United States will actually be the beginning of even closer strategic relationship between Britain and the United States. The third implication concerns Labour, the Labour Party in Britain. This is one of the worst electoral defeats of the Labour Party in its history, and certainly the biggest loss of number of seats in the House of Commons since the 1930s, from over 70 years. And of course, the major clear consequence is that the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn for Labour is now history, will end. But by far, the most important element here is one, that there will be echoes, resonances of that defeat of Labour in Britain across the entire left in Europe, the entire European left-of-centre parties in the continent. Why? Because Labour in Britain has a very special weight and positioning within the European left movement. And such a defeat for Labour will resonate widely and will be studied. And that's an important consequence, an implication, and something to keep an eye on in European politics. A sub-implication here, another implication within the defeat of Labour, is that a significant part of the victory of the Conservatives in this election in December 2019 is that many constituencies in relatively poor areas of England, or relatively lower middle class constituencies in England, especially in the north, in the northeast and the northwest, the historically industrial, very much Labour-oriented constituencies in northern England, this time they abandoned Labour and voted for the Conservatives. Why is a long story and not for us tonight. But the important implication, future-oriented consequence here is that this is quite a historical opportunity actually for the Conservatives, especially under the leadership of an ambitious and certainly smart leader such as Boris Johnson, to cement the loyalty of those constituencies to the Conservatives. And even if the word loyalty is strong, at least the closeness of those constituencies to the Conservatives. In other words, This could be an opportunity to effect a significant long-term shift in the nature of voting in Northern England from Labour to the Conservatives. And that's a very important area to watch in the coming months and years. The next implication of this election, December 2019, is of course the Scotland dossier. We know that Scotland voted in the referendum of 2016 to remain inside the European Union, while Britain voted to get out. Now we see in the election of December 2019 that Scotland very much empowered the Scottish Party that effectively wants separation from the United Kingdom. This means that even if the Conservative government refuses to grant Scotland another independence referendum, as is highly likely, despite that, the dossier of Scotland and its independence and its relationship to the United Kingdom will certainly remain at the fore, at the front of British politics for at least a year or two to come. The last implication is very relevant, and that is that the issue of identity in Great Britain now is very much going to revolve in the coming year or two around the identities of its components. Scotland we talked about, Ireland, whether Northern Ireland and its relationship to Great Britain or Northern Ireland and its relationship to the Republic of Ireland, the identity issue in the Irish dossier will very much come to the front. And even in Wales, which has had for hundreds of years a very close relationship to England, certainly in an environment in which the Scottish and the Irish identities do come to the front, the Welsh identity will also revive in some ways politically. And of course, at the heart of all of that is what we have already been seeing for a number of years and which very much manifested itself in the Brexit vote, and that is the resurgence of a very strong form of Englishness, of the English identity. And therefore, the last but certainly one of the most important implications of the last 3.5 years of British politics, and especially of the elections of December 2019, is the surge of national identities as a key political dossier in British politics in the foreseeable future.